Hello, and welcome back to Queens of the Paddock, an F1 podcast. My name is Alex.
And I'm Courtney.
And we are back again today to talk about the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix that is happening this weekend. So we were going to give you some background on the track and all of that other good stuff. We've got some news. We have some other just like little tidbits to share with you.
Yeah, just to kick us off and get us ready for another weekend of racing.
I know. I'm excited. It feels like it's been so long again because it was only like a week ago. But still.
It's like we got a taste of things.
I know.
And then it's like, oh, we're just going to give you a teaser and make you really wait again.
Yeah. And then it's like after this race, we're going to be waiting, I feel like.
For a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, hold on.
It's like 2-3 weeks, right?
So there's the Australia is April 2nd or something.
Okay.
And then after that, that's when we have a really long break until Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
At the end of April. Yeah.
Oh, your birthday celebration.
Right.
Yeah.
But
okay. Well, you want to lead us off with the news that we've got going on?
Yeah. So there's been a lot of different things going on. I feel like a lot of these teams are kind of like in turmoil right now, just in general. Like I do, because like Aston Martin came out and they were doing so well. And I think it's really stressing a lot of people out. And I think we're seeing the effects of that. So like,
oh yeah.
Okay, so we had Red Bull and Helmut Marko and the drivers coming out and like kind of accusing Aston Martin of like stealing design tidbits and stealing. What? Yes. Yeah, so there was a guy that was working for Red Bull and he left this past year and went over to Aston Martin, and now he's obviously working with that team. And so there's like Helmut Marko especially and the drivers are calling out all of the similarities between the Red Bull and the Aston Martin car, and basically saying that like, while this guy did not take any like intellectual property that you can probably prove, all of those thoughts are in his head, right? So like he went to Aston Martin and he's got those plans. So like it's not like they went away overnight.
Yeah. But at the same time, is there anything really against that?
No,
I mean,
I
that's
don't think
kind of
so.
the whole point. Like, I mean, people steal people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, think about it. You leave Apple or, I don't know, some major company like, what's the one, SpaceX or something like that. I mean, as long as you're not taking intellectual property.
Right. Yeah, what can they really do about it? And so that's my thing. It's like, I don't think any of these teams have like non-competes or like NDAs or anything like that they are putting out there. Maybe they have NDAs, but I don't know how you would enforce that. But so Helmut Marko basically came out and like said
specific designs or something like that. Like,
right.
Technically, I just don't see like.
Right. I don't think you can directly like copy stuff. Like if you see somebody doing it, like then just go and copy it outright. But if you're just taking inspiration, how can they prove it? I don't know.
I mean, all it would take is doing one little thing different, and then is it the same thing?
Right.
No,
right.
Not really.
Well, and then even after, so they do a press conference after the race with the three people from the podium, right? So it was Max, Checo, and Fernando. And the interviewer said something like, how does it feel to have like two Red Bulls and an Aston Martin on the podium or whatever? And Checo was like, oh, like we're all Red Bull drivers. There was 3 Red Bull drivers on the podium this weekend. Because it's like,
I know you mentioned that in our conspiracy theory
it's like that much of like a joke.
It was hilarious.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think they're just trying to throw shade because they feel like they're kind of, getting on the back foot.
Bullied?
Yeah. Or like they're like they feel threatened. That's what I'm trying to say. They feel threatened.
Yeah. Or I just think maybe they're just trying to throw shade because everybody was throwing shade at them last year.
Maybe
now it's their time to, I have something I can throw shade back.
Okay, so also within the past 2 weeks, like since the last race, Mercedes is like having all kinds of issues. Right, directly after the race, George said in an interview that he felt like Red Bull was going to win every single race this year. And
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and that's like, oh my gosh, like you can't have your driver out there like responding to interview questions saying stuff like that.
Like our team sucks.
Yeah, like that's kind of like embarrassing for the whole team, right?
Yeah.
And then Lewis and Toto have both like publicly been criticizing the car and the choice to keep going with the zero side pod design. And like that's been, I mean, there's a ton of different headlines about that going around, and it seems like they kind of seem like they're in turmoil. I don't know.
Yeah.
So then,
So can they change the zero pod
yeah,
design at all this year? Or
I
no?
think they can. I think they can like do an upgrade on the car, and then if they wanted to change that, but that's like a massive, like I don't know if that would be within budget cap.
Yeah, true. Good point.
So
Well,
remains to be
unless
seen.
you think, I mean, do you really think Toto's just going to give this as a sunk season? I feel like last year they started out the same way and then they ended up kind of competing there at the end.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just, I would hate to say it, but like being a bit of a drama queen right now. About
Maybe
it.
they
They're so
are.
used to winning, and now
They're
they've
just
got a car that
frustrated.
they've got to like fight to get to the top, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I felt like they were, I mean, the vibe was generally like hopeful even after like testing and then after the practice sessions and all of that for this past race. Like even George was the one that was saying that like the season's really long and there's time for them to bring upgrades and all of that kind of stuff. And then he turns around and is like, no, Red Bull's going to win everything all year. So maybe that was just like a moment of like,
Frustration.
yeah, that he was frustrated and all that. But so Mercedes ended up putting, like the team ended up putting out a note to all of their fans on social media. I don't know if you saw that, but it was like this serious post. Like they were like a note to our fans and like, you know, we've been a team and we're going to stick through it and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, whatever. Cause I think like there was so much negativity coming from the drivers and coming from Toto that they're kind of like, okay, like we need to like reel this back in. Like we don't want people running scared here.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure their investors and sponsors are probably like, what?
Yeah,
the heck
like
is going
what's
on?
going on, guys?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Well, that will be interesting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see kind of, do they come out swinging or is it just another disaster? Or not even disaster, but like, you know what I mean?
yeah, see what happens. And then
Okay.
also at Ferrari, we had their head like aeronautics guy or aerodynamic guy leave to go to McLaren.
Is he leaving next season or?
I think it was effective immediately. Like I think he's there. Like he was like, I'm out. And
Peace.
yeah, and went over there. And then also Laurent Mekies, which is like basically their assistant team principal, like so right under Fred. He was apparently going to be leaving too, but I don't know on that one, like if that was an effective immediately or at the end of the season or
Finish out
what.
the season.
I just saw that headline come across and I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
I don't know. I feel like Ferrari's kind of like not cleaning house, but like literally like, okay, either you're on board and you're moving forward or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you're not, get off this train because it's going forward, you know?
Oh,
And
100%.
I kind of like it.
I
think they
I'm
need to shake
agree.
up.
Yeah, I think they needed to shake it up, like you said, and get some of that old regime out there. And then it really got me to thinking, like, at a company, right? So like you might be working somewhere, and then you get a new president or a new CEO, and like all of these people start to kind of like jump ship. And it's because they're part of the old regime. And so like somebody else new comes in, they might have different roles, different expectations. And the people that have been there
Ideas.
are like, oh, I'm not going to fall in line with that. But I don't know. I think this is a positive thing. I think he's weeding out some of the people that have issues or basically like, you know, calling on them to do better or do more. And they might not be on board with it. So it's better for them to just go.
Yeah, exactly.
Goodbye.
That's what I think. Yeah. It's like you're either part of this or you're not.
Right.
If not, that's fine. No hurt feelings. Like, go find somebody else. I'll find somebody else that wants to do the job.
Right.
I think Ferrari and maybe some of the other teams need to take after Red Bull sometimes of being a little more cutthroat. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't a game for like the faint of heart.
Right.
Like, either produce or you
you're
need to get
gone.
off. You
You're
know, like,
out.
yeah.
86th.
Yeah. I mean, it's no different than any other company.
Yeah,
A lot of
no.
companies are like that. It's like, I'm not going to keep someone on my payroll that doesn't do anything.
Right. That's not
Like,
performing, not bringing the results. Absolutely.
yeah.
They need to
So,
be gone and be replaced.
yeah. I hope it works out though.
I know. So also I have on here for notes that Charles might be taking an engine penalty this weekend. We don't know for sure yet. Hello, this is Editing Alex, and unfortunately, Ferrari has confirmed today, as of editing this podcast, that Charles will be taking a grid penalty in Saudi Arabia this weekend. So sad to hear that for him. But we'll hope that he can race back to the start from there. But obviously, like, so he changed 2 of his components before the race in Bahrain, and they only get 2 components, like whatever those were. I think it was like an engine something, and I don't know, whatever, some other piece of the engine that needed to be changed. And obviously the second one that they changed it to for the race did not work because he did not finish. So the question then is, like, are those original ones still good enough to be run again? Or if they saw an issue with it before Bahrain, so much so that they decided to change it before the first race, like, they're probably going to have to go into like a third, component at this point, which if they do end up doing that, he's going to have a grid penalty in Saudi.
Which stings, but he's come back before after having grid penalties, so you never know.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. No official news on that yet, but we'll know that for sure before like practice starts. So if anything comes across, we will share it on our Insta feed.
Yeah, and in Twitter.
Okay, so other just like social news, things that I've observed this week. Lando has taken back to his Twitch streaming pretty heavily.
I don't even know what Twitch streaming is.
So
Alex.
Twitch streaming, I don't know 100% what it is either. It's something that the kids do. We're not that young.
No, not at all.
But
I don't even have a Twitter, Alex.
Well, I didn't either, and that's why Dustin has to run our Twitter. Because I don't know how to do it. Anyways, but so he will get on, and he was doing this a lot during like COVID and the pandemic. He would get on Twitch and play like games on there, and then they're just like live streaming him playing games or like driving his sim around and whatever. And then like he just has like funny banter like while he's doing this.
I don't know if I like this.
I find it intriguing.
I just don't know if I could sit there and watch that. It's not like TikTok.
So no, it's not. And like, I'm telling you though, the kids are all about this. Like, my niece and nephew will watch people live streaming on YouTube or whatever, playing different games for like hours. And I'm like, what do you get out of this?
The dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like, does not seem entertaining to me at all.
But so just something to note, he has definitely taken back up on his Twitch streaming, and I'm wondering if that's a sign of like, is he checked out? Like, is he like, this year is going to suck, so I might as well just go like Twitch stream and not worry about it. I don't know. I don't know what that means.
I don't know. Or maybe he's just trying to prove to the world that he actually is practicing, even though his car is terrible.
True. I mean, I guess the practice from the sim is good. I mean, it's all good. It's fine. interesting. And just a couple little tidbits of WAG's news. We talked about Carmen not being well. She was suffering from epilepsy and like different seizure things and all of that. So she seems to be doing much better. She's been posting more. She looks well. She was actually spotted in Monaco with George and Susie and Toto, which was cute. Like they looked like they were like on a little family outing. Like they looked like they were going to dinner or something. I don't know. It looked nice. So hope she's doing a lot better. Again, she seems to be doing better. So that's good to see. And then this I just thought was interesting. So Charlotte, Charles's ex, she is like become, ever since they've broken up, she's become like major influencer vibes. Like she is like posting sponsored ads, like just sponsored content all day.
Well, you know why?
Well, yeah,
because Charles isn't footing the bill anymore.
Oh no, seriously though.
What?
No, it's true.
How are you going to keep the lifestyle?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you got to make money somehow.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think she's probably like, oh my God, no, like I need to accept like every ad deal that's in my inbox right now because they're soon not going to be coming in because she's not dating Charles anymore.
Exactly.
But this was really interesting, I thought. So she was on this like influencer trip this past week with Esty Bestie's girlfriend, Elena.
Oh gosh.
And they were like driving Porsches out in like this frozen field. Like it was very odd. I don't know if it was a Porsche like ad campaign or what. I don't know whose like campaign this was. But they were there and they were taking pictures together, like smiling, laughing. And I'm like, is she trying to like throw her like, I don't know, self, not herself, but like, is she just trying to be like relevant still? I think.
I don't know. Or she's trying to steal SD.
No, I don't think so.
You never know.
I don't know. There is, I will say too, there has been some rumblings of if Esty and this Elena girl are still together or not, because they haven't like been pictured together in like however many weeks or whatever. I think they still are. I mean, they've been together for like 7 or 8 years at this point, so I just feel like they don't need to be like together all the time. Like she's doing her stuff, he's obviously busy, so I think that's just a rumor.
We shall see.
We shall see. But okay, well that's all I have in news tidbits. Okay, so let's like transition over into the circuit and all of that for Saudi. So let's get going. I'm so excited. I can't wait for this weekend. I think it's going to be a really good race.
I need like Grand Prix time again.
I know.
So, okay. So we are in round 2 in Saudi Arabia, specifically in Jeddah. That is where the track is located, which I believe Jeddah is off of the coast of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see like all the water and whatnot on it. This track, or this circuit, I should say, was opened up in 2021. Yes, where they had their first Grand Prix. So it's only a few years old. It is a 50-lap race, about 3.7 miles long per lap. In total, I think they'll go just under 200 miles, like 191 miles. And it's actually the second longest track behind Spa on the calendar.
Oh.
And it's, and it's a street track. So I'm super excited for that.
I love a street track.
Oh, a lot of fun.
I love a street track.
It's one of the like fastest circuits on the calendar. So super fast speeds, not a whole lot. There are turns, but not like a whole lot of like 90-degree. It's just a like really smooth, fast circuit from the guys, or from what the drivers say. With that, what else? Okay, so average speeds are 160 miles an hour.
That's crazy.
So I know, super fast. I'm like I think this is going to be an exciting race.
Oh my God, totally. Well, and then just like looking at the track layout, like I love how it's so like tight and narrow. Like, I mean, it's like a little like string, you know, because it just goes down that coastline and comes back up. And yeah, I'm super excited for this race.
So with that, like, a lot of the drivers have said how dangerous this track is because there's a lot of blind corners, and then the speeds that they're going, it's just like a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
So this year they actually made quite a few changes to the circuit itself. So the biggest change is in turn 22 and 23. They've actually moved the fence in to slow people down, and then they've also added more beveled curves.
Okay, so you
that
can tell if you're like running off.
Well, not only running off, but it prevents the drivers from like going wide at such high speeds. It like will slow them down, because if you go wide, you'll either bottom out or like, you know, like it's just not as fast.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that was one of the biggest changes that they've made. Then on turn 14 and 20, all of the fences have been pushed back, the opposite effect. And it's because there was so many blind corners, and the drivers were saying they couldn't see like the next turn, and for how fast they're going, they didn't like it. So what they did was they kind of opened it up. So it will be faster, but it's safer for the drivers because they can actually see a little bit farther down the circuit.
No, that makes sense. They can kind of judge better of like where that turn is coming up.
And it kind of reminds me of like the turns first three through 7, I think, on Coda. You know how it's like really opened up, even though like there's a lot of turns, but you can fully see kind of down the track.
Like it kind of winds down, but it's still like a big straight kind of almost.
Exactly. And then the last big thing is almost every single turn now either has a rumble strip or a beveled curve.
Edge.
And it's just, again, to really not slow down the drivers, but slow them down enough to where you're not just like full on metal to the pedal,
right? Like flying through there.
Exactly. So those were like the big changes that they made on the track compared to last year. So, and they said that every year they're going to continue to evaluate and see like what's the best for the sport and the safety of the drivers and things like that. And it's evolving, right? Because it is a street track. They just put fences up and take them down.
Right.
So.
No, I think that's like the best thing about a street track. Like I prefer a street circuit over a traditional track just because to me, it's more exciting. Like you're racing on like a regular road and there's like buildings around and all of that. But that is one of the best things, is that you can make those changes because it's not like a structure that's fixed.
Yep.
So that's definitely cool.
Exactly. So, and then weather-wise, it's supposed to be high of 88 during the day, sunny. I don't think we're expecting any rain. I mean, it is the Middle East. So, and then I did look at the winds. So Friday, it's supposed to be about 6-mile-per-hour winds. And then Saturday, Sunday, between 12 and 18 miles. So I don't think, like, everything I was reading online doesn't, like, point that that's going to be, like, a huge issue or anything like that. But if they get a wind gust, you never know. Like, at those kind of speeds. Like,
no, seriously. I mean, that 100, what'd you say, 60 miles an hour? 160?
6. Like,
yeah.
No. Oh, wait, 160 average miles per hour that they're driving at? Yeah.
That's crazy. That is so insane.
So, yeah.
Another thing that I am excited for, which I also prefer this, is a nighttime race.
Yes.
So I think it looks so much cooler, like under the floodlights.
The interesting thing will be the tires, though.
Yeah.
Because starting at night, I mean, the temperatures, especially in the desert and stuff like that,
drops.
I mean, they drop so drastically. So I think trying to keep heat in the tires may be more difficult as well.
Might be an issue. Yeah. So, and it's a little bit later over there. So I think Bahrain started at like 6 p.m. local time, and then this one's going to start 8 p.m. local time. So it's like definitely fully nighttime. Yeah.
And the difference was in Bahrain, qualifying and all of that was actually in the afternoon versus the race was like sunset evening. And in Saudi, everything is fully in the evening. I think the only one is practice. I think
Yeah,
some
there's
of the practices
practice
are in the
1
afternoon.
and practice 3 start at 4:30 local time. But that's still like later in the day. Like it's already at that point cooled down some from like high noon temperatures. So, yeah, I think it's not going to be as tricky as it was for setups like how they had in Bahrain.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. And then the last thing I want to talk about, or kind of big thing, is, well, two things. So there's 3 DRS zones, which I'm super excited for because I want to see the passing. And then the second thing was, what I was reading is that you don't want too much downforce on a track like this.
Oh.
So I'm interested to see like whose car like does better in those kind of situations, because I feel like last year, like, didn't Ferrari have a lot of downforce on their car, if I remember
I think
correctly? And I
so.
don't know if it's the same this year.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So
No, and that was definitely something that I read too, like that between Bahrain and this Jeddah track, like we're going to see potentially like a whole different slew of teams performing better than what we saw at Bahrain because the tracks are so much different.
yeah, I think you had in our notes that like McLaren should do better on this track,
Was that me?
right?
I think that's me just wishful thinking.
Oh, is that wishful thinking? Because I was about to be like, I was like, when I like was going through this, I was like,
That's wishful thinking, Alex. Doing my thing.
yeah.
But
So
do we want to get into some of our predictions?
yeah, I'm down for that.
Okay, cool. So we already kind of talked about, this track, there's not the huge runoff areas that we saw in Bahrain. So I am predicting definitely for sure more crashes, more contact. I don't want to say like
Wait,
full on.
who do you think is going to be the first crash?
Okay, I think it's going to be one of the rookies because they don't have as much experience on this track. And Nick DeVries has actually never driven this track, period. Like ever before. Yeah. So Logan and Oscar have driven it because they, in F2, drove the track. I think Oscar only was able to do it one time the first year that the track, like that they raced there at Jeddah. Logan's probably done it twice at this point, but then Nick was already out of F2 before this track started.
Opened up.
Yeah. And then he hasn't been in F1. So I don't think that he's driven it. And this
So I
is a
think it's
really
gonna be
tricky.
Oscar.
No, you think it's gonna be Oscar?
I do. I don't know. I think there's something. I think he's just going to make the wrong move, and I think he's going to slam into a wall. Like, I just don't know why.
I think the highest probability for me of a crash is going to be Nick, just based on the fact that I don't think he's driven this track, unless if he's gotten out there and like driven it on some odd time.
Like practice. Yeah. But still, I feel like he's a little bit more of a careful driver.
That's
I feel
true.
like Oscar, especially after last weekend, I feel like Oscar's got something to prove. And I feel like he's just going to go out like almost like Yuki, like the Tasmanian devil. And all it takes is like one false move.
Just raring to go.
Yeah, especially with all of these new beveled curves, the rumble strips going that fast. I mean, literally, we've seen it multiple times. Somebody hits one of those curbs just right.
Yeah,
You're
you
like,
spin out, you're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
for
I
sure.
think it's going to be Oscar.
Okay, so outside of that, I think we're going to see. Okay, this is my hot take prediction.
Oh.
Both Aston Martins on the podium.
Both?
Yes, Fernando and Lance. I think they're both going to be up there.
I could totally see that because, like, I saw this graphic this past week, and essentially they took the Alonso's Aston Martin up against Max's Red Bull, and it showed, like, the lines and, like, on the straightaways, like, if they had started at the exact same time, like, who would be out in front. And the Aston Martin had, like, straight line speed, and, like, this being such a fast track, I'm like, You never know.
No, that's what I'm thinking. And then I'm also, okay, so we already saw Fernando on the podium. I think Lance had the potential to have gotten on the podium this past weekend, but don't forget, he was just coming off of his like wrist surgery, and I mean, he was 12 days out from that. And so now it's given him 2 more weeks.
Another 14 days. Yeah.
To like, you know, improve in what he's doing and to feel even better than where he was during Bahrain. So I don't know. I think he's going to get up there.
I could totally see that. As much as I would love to see Ferrari up there, I feel like, I don't know, for some reason I feel like this is not the track for them.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
See, okay, so my podium is Charles first, because Charles is always going to be first on my podium.
He's first in your heart and first in the
He's
track.
first in my heart. He's going to be first on my podium. Until I feel like I'm jinxing him, and then I'll make some changes with that. But I think he really needs a win, obviously, after this past weekend with his DNF and, you know, all the positive vibes for him. And we'll get into kind of like a little recap of what happened last year, but he drove this track incredibly amazing this past year. And I mean, I feel like he should have won that race. So I think he's good at this track. I think he enjoys driving this track. So I'm putting him first on my podium. And then I have Fernando second place, because I just think that they're gonna come up, those Aston Martins, even further than they were. And then I have Lance number 3, because I'm thinking it's a 2-3 Aston Martin. I'm gonna be wearing my hat. Hopefully it arrives by then. Hasn't come yet.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm gonna go Max 1.
Okay.
Because I just think their car looks really good. I'm gonna manifest Charles 2.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna go Alonso Lance 3-4.
Okay. Fair.
That's what that's what I think.
Yeah.
But the hard part is Checo.
Yeah.
Because he like somehow always just somehow sneaks in there.
Yeah.
Like you don't realize it, but all of a sudden he's just there and he podiums.
Right.
You know,
right.
and you're just like, oh, okay.
Let's see what happens.
So.
Okay, so I also had this is my little manifest minute. I mean, I don't want to call it that because that's kind of mean, but I had on here Max crashes and or DNFs in some way. His engine just putters out.
You're hoping.
Yeah, that's my wishful thinking.
Or he just makes one wrong move on a curb and slams into the wall.
Is out.
And hopefully he takes out Checo in the process.
Oh God. Can you imagine? I also think too that we're gonna see like both the Red Bulls, both the Astons, both the Ferraris, and both the Mercedes in the points.
Okay.
So like I think that's gonna be the solid like top 8 will be those 4 teams.
I think both Williams are gonna get points this race too.
Okay. I like that.
Because they looked really strong in the first race. So I think they're going to pull it out and maybe like 10-9 or 10-8 or something like that.
Yeah. I would love to see that, especially for Logan being a rookie, you know, driving this track that's more difficult. I think it would be awesome for him to get some points this weekend. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what happened last year during this race.
Okay.
So last year we had Max finish first, Charles second, and then Carlos third.
Okay.
And then this is what was crazy, that only 13 cars finished this race this past year.
Wait,
We
what?
had 5 DNFs and 2 that did not start. Yeah, and I forgot about that.
Did not start.
Okay, so Mick had a crash in qualifying, and I guess the car wasn't able to get repaired on time for him to start the race. So he did not start the race. Period.
Oh.
So like starting grid only had 19 cars on it. And then Yuki on his way, like I guess formation lap or on his way to the grid, had some kind of engine issue. So he like pulled out before the race even started.
I don't even remember that. How crazy.
Yeah, so I didn't remember that either. I had to go back and watch like a little like race recap from last year, and I was like, oh my God, this race was so good. Like I forgot. It was a really good race.
I know.
And then throughout the race, we had Albon crashed. I believe he crashed into Lance, but like they made contact, and then Lance was able to finish the race and Alex was not. Bottas, Alonso, and Ricardo all had engine failure issues, and so they all had to DNF. And then Latifi crashed because what else would he have done? Yeah. We're still out here talking about him. But yeah, so that left only 13 cars finishing this race this past year. So that's what made me make my prediction that we're definitely going to see more DNFs during this race, and more safety cars, more red flags, things like that. Yeah. I think too, a lot of the engine issues that they have like at this track is because it's so hot. So like we had seen a lot of cars overheat on this track. So that's something to look out for as well.
And hopefully we shouldn't see a lot of lapping also, because the track is so long. Yeah. So even if you are like, you know, if Max is running away with it, I don't think we'll have a lot of the issues of him trying to navigate traffic and stuff like that, or any of the drivers. So
you mean
that's
Charles?
kind of
because Charles is going to be in first. Okay, so
you and your manifesting.
Yeah, just always. So Checo last year got pole at this race, and then Ferrari did in probably one of their best pit stops ever. They bluffed a pit stop. So they called Charles on the radio and said, hey, like, go into a pit stop. We're going to do an early pit stop so that we can overtake Checo, which then forced Checo to go into the pits, and Charles kept on driving because Checo was in front of him, right? And so then they called up Charles on the radio and were like, okay, box now to overtake. And of course, like all of that radio transmission goes to all of the different teams.
All of the teams. But do you think that was planned, or do you think that Charles just totally ignored them?
No, I think they were actually, that was like the only bit of strategy that worked for them.
So you think that was part of like plan G?
Yeah. Or maybe that was plan A and it just worked. Well, okay, so then here's what also happened.
But there's got to be a way for them to communicate that to him, right? So I wonder, when everyone's rolling their eyes when they're saying, oh, plan G,
yeah,
then like that's like sneaky ways of them
because he
knowing how to do that.
Like he kept on driving past. Well, so they made that call. Checo pitted, and then they told him. I think the plan was probably like, if Checo pits, then you go pit.
Then you keep going.
Right.
If Checo doesn't pit, then you pit.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Checo ends up pitting. Charles takes the lead because he's in the pits. And then that same lap is when Latifi crashed into the wall and caused a safety car.
Yeah, it caused a safety car, and then that gives Charles a free like
pit stop,
tire change.
Yeah. So that was a great bit of strategy. Probably the only bit of strategy.
Do you think Ferrari and Williams was in cahoots?
No, I don't think so. If it was like a Haas crashing or something,
or an Alfa Romeo
crashing because they share the engines, I would maybe raise a couple eyebrows. Okay, so then after that, like towards the end of the race, there was really, really great like battling between Max and Charles. And then like Charles would get in front of Max would get back in front of Charles. Like it was just back and forth for the last few laps, and finally, last lap, Max was ahead, and he beat Charles by like half a second. Like, it was very close. It wasn't like usually when we see Max winning and he's like 30 seconds ahead of somebody. It's Sunday Stroll vibes.
Yeah, yeah.
He was making him work for it. And Charles actually got driver of the day on that race.
Oh,
So,
which is an extra point, right?
no, I don't think you get points for that. They should.
They should.
He might have gotten, he did, I think, get fastest lap too, so you get an extra point for that. But driver of the day is just like a fan vote thing, and they should give points out for that. I think they should.
Yeah, I would like that.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, one of the other big things about this race or this Grand Prix is there's a lot of controversy around it and having it in Saudi and all of that. And one of the biggest reasons is because of the human rights issues that they have.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Qatar or Qatar whenever they had the World Cup kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
With all of that side of things.
Oh, yeah, I know. There's a ton of that. Just terrorism, like you said, the poor human rights, their use of capital punishment is extreme. So, yeah, I mean, I really think at the end of the day, we're racing in Saudi Arabia because of money. Money. Yeah.
Well, and I hope one day, my hope is that we do, groups, companies, whatever, do all of this stuff in Saudi, and eventually the rules change, and things change and evolve
for the better.
That's my hope.
Yeah.
One day.
Absolutely. So a little fun fact too, that oil was discovered in Saudi Arabia in 1938. And they are the second largest oil producer in the world behind the United States. But they are the largest exporter of oil in the world. So that's where it's all the Saudi Arabian oil.
They pretty much control the supply and demand of the world.
Yep.
And the price of oil.
Absolutely. That's right.
Oh, yeah. I hear all about that all the time.
And it's another kingdom, too. We have another king, King Salman.
Oh. What's his name?
Salman.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if King Salman will be at this race. I feel like he will.
Maybe.
I feel like the king will be there. He also, I think his son is the crown prince too, and he's also the prime minister. So interesting stuff. We're super excited for this race. We can't wait.
Yes.
But that is all we have. We talked about weather. We talked about our predictions, some news, all about the track.
Changing of the track.
Yeah. So lots of good information. We're really excited. And thank you for listening. So this has been Queens of the Paddock, an F1 podcast. My name is Alex.
And I'm Courtney. Lights out and away we go.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.